Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for welcoming me onto the stage twice in the same day. I do appreciate it. It's very generous of you, and very generous of Andy to let me squeeze in just before his presentation. I will try and be brief. Apologies if I speak quickly. There are some handouts on your tables, and I have more if you'd like to learn more. We also have a webinar that Sustainable Brands hosted for us, and it's on their website, which is a full-length webinar. So if you're interested in learning more, please go to the sustainablebrands.com website, and you'll be able to see the full presentation there. So as mentioned, my name's Andrew Russell. I'm the director of the Plastic Disclosure Project. It's a Clinton Global initiative that was launched several years ago, and we've had support from philanthropists, from the World Bank, and more recently from the Environment Program of the United Nations. And I'm very pleased to be here with you today to explain to you what I think are the three main points that I mentioned to you at lunchtime. I don't know, does anyone remember my 3 points? You could summarize this one as plastic could be fantastic. There are some amazing things we can do with plastic. And as our MC just mentioned, you may not have the opportunity to describe that on your packaging or make a big point of that. But when you don't, it could come to haunt you. It's one of those aspects of your design that you should be mindful about. And it can be a great opportunity for you. On the other hand, plastic pollution can be awful. And I'm afraid in this region in particular, it's really coming to bear. And I'll explain a little more about some of the new findings. This isn't so much an environmental plea for you. It is more a business plea. I'm concerned about your businesses. I'm concerned that as this issue becomes more visible, there's more press on it, I want you as businesses to be ready, to have your stories as to why your product is as good as it can be. And science takes a while, so we're getting the tip of the iceberg of the science now. There's much more to come. So the third point is, how do you manage that dilemma of it being wonderful and awful at the same time? Well, it's by being mindful. If we learned anything from our venerable leader this morning and yesterday morning, being mindful. So as our GM said, as our GM of this wonderful hotel said in the breakout session yesterday, you can't manage it if you don't measure it. And once you measure it, you will find all sorts of opportunities to manage it better. And as Julian of Interbrand said yesterday, the disclosing aspect is important because you're bringing your consumers along. They understand now, because they're more increasingly voting with their feet as to whether they believe that company is sustainable or not. In fact, they're looking to companies as much as governments, if not more, to solve the problems that we're facing. So disclosing in some way or another, explaining to your stakeholders, consumers, investors, governments, regulators, what you're doing and why is increasingly important. So those are the three messages I have. So if we had nothing more, I'll stop there. But in the few minutes I'm going to take from Andy, I'm going to explain a little bit more on why it's particularly relevant here in the ASEAN community. Some facts and figures, a bit more about the impacts. What can we do about it? The business examples I will leave off. You can pick those up in our webinar. We've got some brilliant business examples. How many have seen the movie The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman? Yeah? One word, son, plastics. Since 1950, the growth of plastics has been phenomenal. It's been an amazing business. 300 million tons sold per year now. Unfortunately, a tremendous amount of that is disposable plastic, what people think of as disposable, but it never really goes away. It doesn't actually disappear. It stays there somewhere. And it's accumulating. It's accumulating in places that we really wish it hadn't. You could say it's just a nuisance. It's a bit ugly. It's a bit of an eyesore. Well, I'm afraid it's having impact on tourism. It's having impact on the places we used to play as kids, where we used to learn in the fields. We used to do all sorts of things. And it's coming back to haunt us, including in tourism. You may have heard about these trash islands out in the Pacific. Well, we actually launched the very first scientific expedition to go see if it was true. And yes and no. There is an awful lot of plastic out there. Bad news is there's more bad news, is it's not an island. You can't just pick it up. It's broken into tiny, tiny little pieces. It's like a soup. And the science, even though it was started in 2009, is only coming out now. And this is where I think in this region we really must pay attention. We met with Prince Charles in Washington, D.C. this morning in a different meeting. And he quoted our recent report with UNEP and his own report that shows we will very soon have 1 ton of plastic in the ocean for every 3 tons of fish. It's even worse. In some parts of these gyres, these naturally circulating currents, there is 6 times as much plankton as there is, 6 times as much plastic as there is plankton. So if you're a fish just swallowing, you think what you're eating, think what we're eating. And I'm afraid recent research just released in the last few weeks tells us where the plastic's coming from. And 8 of the top 10 countries are in Asia. China is number 1, and Thailand is number 6. On a per capita basis, Thailand contributes more than twice as much as China. Now, the plastic doesn't stay in the Gulf of Thailand. It will go elsewhere, but you can imagine the impact, whether it's environmental or tourism or just community sense of value, what the impact is. And whether you believe, and of course the reason it ends up in the ocean often is if it's not managed, if it's not put away properly, a bit of wind, a bit of rain, sends it downhill, and you know where it ends up. It's not just an environmental issue, there's also social and health impacts. You've seen around the world, many of these photos are from India, I'm afraid, but it's not dissimilar across Asia. You see the impact on the environments in which people live, where they work, where they play. You even see, issues with drainage, issues with places that were supposed to keep the environment clean are now actually becoming a problem, and we're getting mass flooding because of plastics gumming up the system. We have people working in the landfill dumps because it's a valuable material. Pound for pound, it can be more valuable than steel. That's why they're there. They're recovering this stuff. But it's unsafe for them, it's unhygienic, and actually, it's just becoming monstrous. The World Bank says that by 2025, we will double the amount of waste we're generating per year. Landfills in all over the world are full, pretty much. We have problems here in Bangkok. I think one of our landfills was on fire in September and causing problems. So we have the same problem where I'm living now in Mumbai. This one is almost 45 meters tall, which is causing interference with air traffic in Mumbai. So what can we do? I think you know the 3 R's. You know the idea about preferring products that have recycled content in them, about not buying things if you don't need them, but if you do need them, choose wisely. And if you're happy with it, tell your friends. As we heard a quote from Paul Polson this morning, consumers still have that power, but they're much better connected now. This is good news, bad news. They don't like your product, they will not only not buy it, they'll tell all their friends. Reusing, recycling, I don't need to teach you these things, but we need to remind ourselves. There's also cleanup initiatives that people can do, which clean up things, but it's more about awareness raising. There's citizen science where you can document what you've seen, and that helps make sure brands understand where their items are ending up. It becomes branded litter, your brand on the street. Authorities can have a very significant role, setting the right policy framework, maybe even helping establish the right infrastructure so that the dumps are well managed, so that the recycling content is recycled, not just put in the dumps. What I really want to emphasize to you today, and I think Andy will actually cover these kinds of topics in a moment, is that businesses have an opportunity, but they also have risks associated with this. Businesses can make a real difference. You can be seen to be fixing the problem, or you can be seen to not be. You can be seen to be contributing to the problem. So whether it's saving money by being more careful about your plastic, whether it's being more aware of the regulatory risk, there's laws and bans and taxes coming out all over the place that really surprise people. Reputational, or maybe even product differentiation. Your product's a bit different on the shelf because you've been more mindful, and so it leaps into customers' hands. I'll give you the example of Coke, who we just had a wonderful presentation from just earlier. I don't know if everyone managed to be there. We're a big fan of Coke, and they do lots of wonderful things. They didn't focus so much on their plastic here, but I'll give you some great examples. They have a plant bottle. There's a similar one being shown outside, where 30% of the content is now coming from bio-based materials. It's the waste from sugarcane. So it's a great story, much lower carbon footprint, much healthier product. And at the other end, they're trying to make sure people are recycling them. They're running a very nifty program, EcoCycle, which has the word Coke spelt backwards, to encourage people to recycle those bottles once they're done with them. They're even helping market other people's products that are made with those items, kind of like the pens you heard about from our MC a few moments ago. They're also very good at engaging their stakeholders. Great sustainability reports, great talks like the one we just had, including showing how they're working on this plastic problem. And they also managed to keep regulators and legislation kind of at bay by working hard to make sure people are collecting litter or being careful of their litter by funding organizations like Keep America Beautiful in Australia and New Zealand. But even Coke admit they haven't got it right. There's products that they've sold here in Asia to help encourage people to reuse a bottle, use it again as a squirt gun or as a light or what have you. But in the court of public opinion, that wasn't well received. It was seen as just selling more plastic and giving kids more reason to buy Coke. And I'm afraid in Australia, where they didn't support a bottle deposit scheme, Greenpeace took out an attack ad showing seabirds falling from the sky, being poisoned by Coke's plastic. And even right now in Germany, there's a campaign on to boycott their products because they're doing a similar thing in Germany, and there's a threat of a new tax. So it isn't just, it's tax issues, it's consumer issues, it's reputational issues. And I think Coke's doing a brilliant job, but even here, it's difficult. And this is coming to you, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So let's be mindful. Let's be careful about our plastic footprint. I have lots of other examples that I can share with you, but I appreciate that I'm imposing on Andy's time. What I'd like to suggest, as I mentioned, that if you're interested in this topic, please speak to me. Have a look at the handouts. We've got more of them if you like. If you go to the Sustainable Brands website, you have a recording of our webinar that we did when we launched our report with UNEP last year. I was in Nairobi at the first ever UN Environment Assembly, where we launched our new report that actually quantified the impact of plastic on the environment. Doesn't mean we need to move away from plastic, we just need to be cognizant of it. We need to be aware of its impact and what we're doing with it. And we also, of course, have our report available for you. And one of the handouts on your tables is a snapshot, I think, from the automobile industry as an example, where they've done marvelous things with plastic. Half of a car now is plastic, but only 10% of its weight. It's an amazing achievement. So between those, I think there's more information for you to find out, and I think I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. Hope that's been helpful.